That was super rad.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So welcome back to Audiotree Live. I'm Kaylee, and this is Blessed. And when I first heard of you guys, when I knew I was going to host this session, my mind immediately went to the idea of you guys being a Christian indie rock band, just because of the name. So after obviously that song, I'm like, probably not a Christian rock band.
No.
So where exactly did that name come from, and how did you guys collectively like come to that being the decision?
I think Blessed was just kind of like, it was, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like it was just a pleasing name. Like, we just thought, like, the inflection of it and everything was good. It was short. It was easy to remember. But mostly it helps at the border. It's like, it makes border crossing way easier because we're from Canada. And so coming into this country can be an absolute nightmare. And there's this whole bureaucratic process to it that costs a bunch of money. And it's, I mean, we've been denied even with the name Blessed in the past, but it's usually made it a lot easier. This crossing specifically was very easy, and I think it was because they just said, what's the band called? And we're like, Blessed, and they're like, have a good time.
They were like, bless up, you guys. Like,
That's exactly
honestly.
what they said.
And then he just stamped your passport and you just went straight
Yeah.
to Chicago. That's what we like to hear. So for the past 3 years or so, you guys have been releasing multiple EPs and singles. And this past April, we released this little baby right here,
Yeah.
Number one.
Salt. So what's it been like for you guys working more thematically through the format of an album and performing that rather than like kind of having some songs to just kind of like pick and choose from a couple of EPs?
I think EPs provide like kind of a nice format to be more exploratory, and EPs kind of have this nature to them that almost makes them, I don't want to use the word not taken as seriously because we didn't put any less effort into creating them than we did the full length. But I think they just kind of like, the sequencing and the track listing of an EP doesn't have to have much thought put into it because it's short and it's over quickly.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we could have operated under that umbrella for a longer time even. I think EPs are really fun to make, and they're, like I said, like you can kind of do a lot more of an exploratory thing, but making a record, I don't know, we knew it was coming down the pipe, but it was, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else has anything they want to like contribute to it, but I think it just seemed like the natural evolution of the band. Like we knew it was kind of time to make a record. We had 2 singles come out. We had 2 EPs come out, and we toured them like super heavily. Our last show that we played was 276. We keep track of them all. And so to play 250 shows without a record out,
Wow.
It just kind of like felt like it was time to move it forward. And at the same time, like we'd kind of been looking forward to tracking a bunch of stuff, and we went to Montreal to do it with our friend Jace, who plays in a band called the Besnard Lakes. And so it just seemed like the natural step for the band to take at this point. I think we were just ready to make a record and ready to try something with longer form.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. And the other thing that I really, really like about this album is the artwork.
Thank you.
It's so unique and it's so distinct, and it kind of reminds me of like a Soviet Union, like unbranded, like cleaning products. I don't know. I really love this, and if you guys can just tell me a little bit more about this, because I'm genuinely really curious about how this image came together.
So our friend Nathan Levasseur, who everyone should definitely check out, his design work is incredible, has done everything for the band up until this point. And it's kind of funny, like everyone's kind of had their own distinct reaction to it. Like one of our friends messaged me and was like, oh, that's very Heathers, like for the vibe with like, but Nathan can speak to it way better than I can, but when he came to me with the concept for the record, it was kind of built around this idea of trying to make a cover where everyone would have their own relationship to it. So as a standalone scene, it's pretty like nondescript, and it's pretty. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's about everyone's personal relationship with the cover, in the sense that you see a cleaning product in a glass with a straw, and there's like an implication of, oh, is somebody drinking it? Or is it just glasses on a counter? Is it just cleaning bottles on a counter? So we kind of wanted to make something that just had a little more of an interpretive feel to it, in the sense that your relationship to the cover is how you perceive it. To some people, it's been very plain, and to some people, there's been a lot more reading into it than that. And I think everyone kind of has their personal experience with the cover, and that's something that I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, the same thing with your music. I mean, I'm sure that everyone that listens to you and music in general has a very subjective relationship to that.
Yeah, that also tied into part of the reason we wanted to do something that kind of felt like everyone had their own relationship with it, because we keep track of bands that people say we sound like, because it's like a really fun endeavor. Because
who are some bands though? That's what we gotta know.
We get yes a lot.
Number ones would probably be. We get yes a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot is what it sounds like.
That is like by far the highest, yeah. And like Devo and television. But then some people, like we had someone come up to us at a show in Houston and be like, you guys are like the Foo Fighters. And we had like someone come up in some other city and be like, y'all are like Kings of Leon. And it's like, some people just have the most abstract relationship with it. So I think the album cover ties into it a little bit, this idea of just a piece of art that people really tie their own relationship to. I think it happens with our music a lot too, just in the sense that people say some of the wildest things sometimes. Like we got Nirvana once, and I was like, how? How did you hear that one?
You were like, thank you, kind of, but like, okay.
But it's interesting. It's definitely like, I don't mean it in a condescending way. It's just like, it's interesting to hear what people take from it.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's wild. But yeah, whenever you guys are ready, I think we're ready for another one.
All right.
feel free to take a moment and take a sip of water if need be. That was very blisteringly beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Like, just like the name Blessed. Like, it's a lot of bees. This is like, I like it. It's very thematic.
Save the bees.
True. Save the bees. Save the bees. Wow.
Thank you.
That was a hard punch at the end. I like that. So yeah. Yeah, I'm like, whew. I like I'm hot from that. So you guys are from Fraser Valley, which is a small community essentially of like towns. That's kind of how it was described to me.
Yeah, it's like a collective of a couple townships in British Columbia. It's like an hour outside of Vancouver.
Cool. And so there's a pretty marginal DIY community there, but very important to the creation of your group.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the Fraser Valley is kind of a weird place to be from. It's definitely a city that, between the cities we live in, there's almost no municipal support for, weird or niche outsider art in any capacity. And we've even lost, basically, any venue that any of us had growing up. You were lucky if you had it for a year or two before it was shut down or demolished or bought by a developer. So, I mean, the community has kind of sustained itself just by, house shows. People even used to throw shows in churches, begging their pastors that they grew up with to, let them throw shows there. But that hasn't stopped, this, conducive environment to creating weird and outsider art, and it seems like a lot of people are drawn to it in the valley. And I think over the last 12 years of people playing together and meeting and being from there, and we were also lucky to have a couple people we went to high school with, their older brothers or something like that, or their older sisters would be in bands that were playing locally that were kind of tied into a lot of weird outsider art coming from Canada. And then we had Weird Canada, which was this blog for a while that really spotlighted a lot of the more obscure stuff coming from Canada and kind of gave it a voice. So there have been avenues for it, but you really had to make things happen on your own accord. There was never municipal support. There was never venues. There was a pretty intense DIY structure kind of built into making anything happen in that community.
Yeah, if you want it done right, do it yourself.
Yeah, no doubt.
Really though.
Exactly. I think there's a couple. I think there's a couple people who are ready for the city to come on board and do something, anything. There are people who've been lobbying there for a long time, our community radio station, CIVL. And just a lot of people who put on house shows and things like that. They're really invested in trying to make sure that art can flourish there. And it's been an uphill battle, to say the least.
Well, it seems like you guys are making waves, though, because your local newspaper picked you up.
Yeah. That's a really contentious issue, I think, with the five of us, because the Abbotsford News, as much as it is nice to see, I guess, them covering it. They also, a couple years ago, they ran a headline from this local, religious group that said the LGBTQ are scaring us, and they ran that over a rainbow flag, which just seemed like the most derogatory thing you could ever do. And there's just, this environment of, it's a very Mennonite community that we're from, and there's a, really overt religious aspect to being where we are, which is, again, a facet of why kind of outsider or weird niche art has trouble flourishing. But, there's way bigger problems to tackle for people in the community regarding, how oppressed they are by the religious majority of the city. So, sure, there's an aspect to it that's, I guess they're finally recognizing something at the very least, but at the same time, it feels akin to Breitbart writing about you or something like that. How much do you really want to invest in caring about what they think?
Yeah.
It's very nil.
Yeah. Either way, the irony of the band name and what you guys are doing and getting your name out there and bringing exposure and awareness to your community is super important.
Yeah, and I don't want to disparage the amount of people doing incredible work in the Fraser Valley, because there's hundreds of them. And we've been lucky living there over the last 12 years to kind of when you live somewhere for over a decade like that, you become very entrenched in the social circle of people doing it. And there's a lot of people who are doing work there who deserve way more recognition for what they're doing. And if we had an hour, it would be nice to list them all, but we don't not see it. And we participate in it as much as possible when we're home. And talking about it too is definitely helpful. And making people cognizant of the fact that there are people living there who understand that it's an oppressive place, and there are things that are trying to happen, and there are people trying to make things a more conducive environment to be welcoming.
Yeah. Well, on a lighter note, bringing up home, you guys have been touring in America for a minute. This is for everybody. Everyone has to answer this. What has been the coolest thing that you've seen on the road in America, comparatively to Canada? Obviously the geography and some social and cultural phenomena are definitely different. What are some of those things that have struck you and you'll take with you from this experience?
I feel like California has this extreme abundance in very weird places that shouldn't exist, like Salvation Mountain and the Salton Sea, and that weird resort town that's there that then immediately died.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the strange, weird places in America are usually intriguing to me.
I'd say for me, probably being from the Fraser Valley, small town, and being from Canada, New York gets kind of this lore, even though it's every other city, it's just buildings and streets and stuff like that. But you only really see it in Hollywood media, so it has this built up idea behind it.
Right.
So seeing New York and getting to go through Manhattan for the first time, and I don't know, seeing places that you see on TV all the time, that was very, very, very cool. I don't know, so it's New York.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's different.
Besides all the roadkill, which is always very exciting to see,
My favorite.
I saw was it armadillo? I saw one for the first time, and then I saw 9, so it got a lot less exciting after seeing the first dead armadillo. But I fell in love with Utah. It's beautiful there, it turns out. I didn't know anything about it before going. Then I was taking a nap in the van, and then all of a sudden I wake up and we're just surrounded by all these giant red mountains.
He loves the overt religion.
Oh yeah, totally. It's a very strange place, and I like that.
BC in general, just the architecture there is so new that being out on the East Coast, you can see the preserved buildings here and all the amazing architecture here, and it's just coming from where we are, where there's none of that. It's pretty mind-blowing to see.
Wow.
Yeah, we make a point of stopping at any Frank Lloyd Wright house we kind of come across, and that's always a nice aspect of traveling in the States, because they're almost all here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really nice thing to go and check out. But the best thing I've seen on the road, I don't know. That's a hard one to answer. There's so much, and everyone already covered so much ground.
Yeah, what are you gonna pick? Come on.
Trying to think. I mean, it was interesting going through some of the major metropolises in the South.
Oh, yeah.
We toured with a band 2 years ago from Birmingham, Alabama, and we went, to Birmingham, Alabama, and Nashville, and New Orleans, and all these places that, kind of like Mitch was saying, they have that Hollywood reputation, and how they're portrayed in media that you watch that kind of give them this weird aura, or this complete misunderstanding of how things work down there. And I think being in some of those major cities and seeing the communities they've been able to build and the people in them and what they're doing there, the South, in terms of their major metropolises, are a lot more progressive than I think I imagined, and that's my Canadian ignorance showing through on what it's like down there. But that was another nice aspect of going through those places, and touring with a band from the South was also really helpful in terms of we were going to a lot of cities where they knew a lot about the city and what was going on. So it's having personal tour guides.
Yeah, perspective is everything. Yeah. But I think we're ready for another song if you guys want to take it away.
All right, thank you so much.
was super sparkly and beautiful. That was wonderful. And you guys have been so wonderful today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you a ton. It
Yeah.
means a bunch.
And you guys are going on the road for a North American tour soon again?
We are halfway
Well, you're on it,
through, or we're a little under halfway through 9.5 weeks. Unfortunately, we had to cancel our Chicago show last week because we had one of the worst flus I've ever had in my life, and Jake had it as well. And we're coming back to Chicago, though, in the fall.
Yeah, you're coming back, though. And you can find all that information at blesstheband.com. You can also follow their social handles at blesstheband. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Thank you to our camera and lighting crews and audio engineers today. Give them a round of applause. And if you want to support Audiotree and the band, you can download this session when it goes up in a couple of weeks. And thank you for watching. See you next time.
All right, so you guys want to do it for real now?